Electrocast.
Cars say a lot about who we are.
It represents freedom for a lot of people.
This season on Drive, I'm going to talk to all sorts of different people.
I looked at car names.
Yes.
And
yes.
I found all the car names that have science or astronomically
it's
inspired.
Crazy.
It's huge.
It is. Yes, I happen to be CEO of Ford Motor Company. For me, it's all about cars, movement, and our mutual passion for things that get us around. This is Drive, and I'm Jim Farley.
This episode is brought to you by Paramount Plus. Ewan McGregor stars as Count Alexander Rostov in A Gentleman in Moscow, the new limited series based on the best-selling novel. Stream it on March 29th with the Paramount Plus with Showtime plan. Visit ParamountPlus.com to try it free.
Hold on to your butts.
We are changing the course of history as we see it. That is what Wesley demands.
Now this affects Iris. Iris, where are you?
What you feel only matters to you. I do not entertain hypotheticals. The world as it is vexing enough.
Iris, I have a tip for you.
Don't take drugs!
Or Whatever Movies with Wesley and Iris.
What up, and welcome to Or Whatever Movies. I'm your co-host Iris, and I'm here with my older brother,
Wesley.
Today, we're talking a movie available on Prime Video from 1981.
Say it right.
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
The only official and the only accepted title.
How is Raiders of the Lost Ark different or more acceptable than Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Because it was retconned to match the others. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Despite the goose not wanting me to mention it, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And coming out this May, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
The impetus for us recording this episode.
In 1977, no one was going to see Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope.
Because it was just called Star Wars?
Yes. This is and will forever be Raiders of the Lost Ark, a Knives Out mystery.
Okay. All right, I see it's listed as the original title.
And that's the poster we're going to use.
Oh, yeah, I see that. I see the one sheet that does not have any mention of Indiana Jones.
It does not matter. I hate because I love.
But why is this so important to you?
One of my all-time favorite movies. It's not a movie that I'm really prepared to examine critically. It's not even so much a movie. It's like family. And with family, you come to accept it over time for all its flaws and little eccentricities and idiosyncrasies. And sometimes family breaks your heart. And no movie has broken my heart more thoroughly over time than Raiders of the Lost Ark. Not like in a real deal breaker kind of way. It's just like disappointments that you put up with, like family.
Wait, okay, stop with the family disappointment references. One. And two, wait, what?
I do not remember a time that this movie hasn't been in my life. It's in my DNA, and I love all things about it. And then as an adult, you come to realize certain things. You come to notice different things that didn't make sense. Every time we've talked about Saturday Night Fever or Air, The Last Unicorn, or any movie where I learned the cadence of the words and the inflections before I understood what they were talking about, this is the movie I always think about. I know the sound, the rhythm, the language of this movie beyond the visuals.
You were 5 when this movie came out.
I know, and I've seen it hundreds of times. I saw it in the theater multiple times. Took the goose once to a screening with Steven Spielberg in a Q&A. He told all the same stories that I've heard or read 100 times. I got up at one point when I saw this movie in the theater and went to the bathroom during the truck chase, and I was playing the movie in my head while I was peeing, and I came back and my sync with the movie was off by maybe a couple of seconds.
Wow. That's quiet. You could reconstruct this movie shot by shot in your head?
Almost. And some kids did this. Did you hear about this? Like right after the movie premiered, they got a little camera and in the 80s and they started filming themselves at like 12 years old, like almost a shot by shot recreation of this movie. They did it off and on until they were 17. So their ages differ wildly within the finished product. And it made its way to like a film festival, and Steven Spielberg saw it and sent them a thank you letter and stuff. And like, you know, it's the best kind of tribute or compliment he could receive.
Wow. What was that boy movie called?
You're talking about the Richard Linklater, Ethan Hawke filmed over time movie.
Yes. Boyhood.
Yeah.
That's like fan film Boyhood style.
This is a totally movie. You have to have seen this movie and seen it multiple times or you don't count. It doesn't matter. I don't know how to critically assess this movie.
So basically, there isn't a movie watching experience that doesn't include Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Not for me. Not for my entire life. I made whips my entire for everything from mom's measuring tapes from her sewing room to string to ropes to anything I could make a whip out of. I did.
Wow. Okay, so I did watch this film critically for the first time, and it was a different experience. I'm not saying that it was good or bad.
There's a definite answer, a right and a wrong answer. Is it good or bad?
No, I don't think critically watching it made it better or worse, I guess is the better way to put it. What did Harrison Ford do before Raiders of the Lost Ark?
What did he do? Oh, I don't know. Nothing big. Just, Star Wars. And so he's been around since Apocalypse Now, possibly even before that, but that's a super early notable role. And George Lucas was a little bit concerned that Harrison Ford would become his Robert De Niro, a la Martin Scorsese, and was resistant to the idea of him as Indiana Jones in the middle of, because he bounced back and forth between Han Solo and Indiana Jones in these 3 films, 6 films.
I mean, massive star, but you could see why. He's got incredible charisma as the now retcon titular character Indiana.
Yep.
I mean, that little sideways smile, oof.
I get it. He's a daddy.
To die for. I mean, he was obviously slaying his students because they loved him.
Yeah. That he's meant to be very American James Bond. Spielberg wanted to direct a Bond movie. George Lucas talked him out of it, said, I've got a better idea. There's this Indiana Smith character that he's like an adventuring archaeologist. He's like, oh, okay. But they wanted to play him kind of broken down and alcoholic. And in the scene when he's about to, when he's like in his house and he's about to leave, there's a woman in the bedroom in that scene. Like, he's a dashing, womanizing James Bond type. He's like dressed all debonair and stuff. And then they were like, maybe make him a little bit more sympathetic.
So they cut that out?
Yep.
We never saw the woman in the bed?
Yeah, we lost that pan when Brody's in his house with him.
No way.
So what did you, what was the experience like viewing this critically as a full-blown adult? Did it feel correct, like it held up? Did you perceive any flaws?
No. I'm curious about these flaws that you speak of.
All right. So I'm going to send you a link because we're going to really get into this. Go ahead and watch the first one. And please note what Harrison Ford says versus what the subtitles say.
Okay.
This is the scene with the great Alfred Molina in a very early role.
Adios, Sapido.
Adios Sapido versus Adios Satipo?
Satipo. What does, you've been to Peru, I've been to Peru. What does sapito mean? Sapido.
Oh, but the subtitles say Adios Satipo.
What is the Spanish word sapo?
Sapo means frog?
Sapo is frog. He's a little frog. It makes sense, right? Sapido?
Sapido.
Right? And so his bro, the dude who they were going to double cross Indy, and Indy whips the gun out of his hand so professionally, that was Barranca. And as he is credited, Satipo and Barranca are both towns in Peru. And they're in Central America. And also Jacques' plane, while his registration number on the plane, on the tail, is also a reference to C-3PO or R2-D2 or whatever, the designation suggests that it's all taking place in the Amazon in Peru.
Okay.
So it tracks. But Harrison Ford says Sapido, which also means something. I'm going with, if Harrison Ford says it on film when he's not mentioned anywhere else and there is no imdb.com, you got to get behind it. It's canon. The dude's name is Sapido. So I sent that to the Goose, who was outraged. And he said, wait, I have the shooting script. And I was like, ooh, the mystery deepens. So we went back to Lawrence Kasdan's masterful script. And do you know what it says in that? Harrison Ford says, adios, stupido. Which is not true. I can't. It made me angry for days. This, where he is unquestionably Sapido, before I even knew what Sapo or Sapido meant, it's so firmly in my mind. The idea that he's credited worldwide everywhere else as Satipo is completely unacceptable.
And it was just a transcriber's mistake, transposing Sapido for Satipo?
I don't know what it is. I'm saying he is firmly Sapito, just like this movie is and will always be Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Wow. I mean, you can't. Is this a flaw? Can you really categorize this as a flaw of the film?
See, you would think, oh, that's a one-off thing in an otherwise, fairly perfect movie. It's a movie and it's a big action movie or whatever, so it's going to have its flaws. It's going to date a little bit. And if that were the only thing, like that's the one curiosity, it's like the blemish, it's like the one zit on an otherwise perfect face, I could get behind it and move on with my life. Now watch the other clip I sent you.
Wow, we are going way down into the rabbit hole.
Indy's in the truck. He's just hijacked the truck containing the Ark of the Covenant, right? And Belloc and Dietrich and Tot, the guy with the imprint of the headpiece of the Staff of Ra, they're chasing and being chased, right? Indy goes into the marketplace and they cover the truck up, and the people in the marketplace push their carts in front of it.
And then they all start hawking their goods in front.
Watch Belloc's car come into the square and look at Tot, the guy in the black hat, who was not on set that day. And this is the solution for not having Tot on set. This was Spielberg's solution.
I'm watching. And it's so funny how he throws the driver out, and the driver basically does exactly what Indy did, except dies and gets run over by the truck.
Yeah, all those dudes are all those various dudes are the three stuntmen doubling Harrison Ford that he's now fighting as Nazis.
Okay, he's tearing into the marketplace. He goes into the garage. The marketplace covers up for him, and now the convertible roars into the roundabout. Was that a hat on a stick?
Dude, it's like, I think the coat is over the seat and the hat's just resting on it. It's the most, you could have gotten anybody to wear that hat.
How did I miss that?
Oh man.
It's just a hat. It's just a hat resting on the back of the seat. At least when they're driving off, at least they had the stunt guy in the car, as they're exiting the square. So, this is a relatively early Steven Spielberg movie. He had Jaws under his belt, but I think this was the one that really brought it home for his Spielberg-Lucas partnership. And so you cut corners here and there. You have Indy's stunt doubles, Harrison Ford stunt double as Nazi. Well, you got stunt guys, right? And they get thrown around because you don't really see their faces as much as Indiana Jones. Pat Roach, the big dude, the mechanic that he fights bare-chested, who eventually goes into the propeller spoiler. Hey, get him! And he punches him and stuff. Did you know that he also played the giant Sherpa in the beginning in Marion's bar in Nepal? Oh.
And so you're like, okay, well, I mean, they put him in a hat and they gave him some facial hair, right? He's the one that grabs Indy and throws him against the door and stuff, and they're fighting a bunch. But sure, you put him in a big hat, you give him facial hair, he's unrecognizable.
Sure.
And so I've known that pretty much my whole life. You recycle dudes. And then 3 days ago, I came upon another one, and you see Sapito and Barranca double crosses him, and Indy whips the gun out of his hand, and Barranca's holding his hand, and we get a close-up on his face, right? And then they run off into the jungle, or he runs off into the jungle, and Sapito hangs around. It foreshadows Sapito's own betrayal. And then Barranca is Eye Patch Monkey Man in Cairo.
No.
And I was like, what? Both the Goose and I were shocked. We're in our mid-40s. Well, the Goose is probably in his late 40s. But we were like, nuh-uh. It's so bizarre to have your tree rocked so late. I mean, it's been over 40 years. And to finding that stuff, I wouldn't say that's a heartbreaking moment. But I feel like one was pulled over on me. One was hoodwinked. I feel like it's you saying hey, that ghost that you were haunted by as a kid at mom and dad's house, that was totally me.
But that was me.
It's almost a betrayal in middle age if you don't find out those things,
He is Vic Tablion is clearly credited as Barranca and Monkey Man.
On IMDb. I watched this movie in 1981.
Meaning you haven't looked at the credits since then?
Yeah, I don't look at your birth certificate. You're just my sister. I know you're there. People was like, when's the last time you saw Iris? I'm like, I don't know. You're there. I know it. It's fine. And then some new revelation comes to light, and I'm like, what the hell?
Wow. And this was all way, way before authenticity. right? Whether he's playing a Peruvian guide or a Egyptian spy, it doesn't matter because we don't care if it's authentic.
Exactly. I don't know. I mean, there's supernatural elements in this adventure movie. So like realism or whatever, or holding closely to authenticity is not something that this movie attempts to do, and I'm fine with it. So I'm growing up, and Indiana Jones is a quintessential adventurer gentleman, right? He's a globetrotter and ladies' man and all that stuff. And so when you said, hey, do you want to meet me in Cairo? I was like, Cairo, city of the living, a paradise on earth. Of course I want to go to Cairo. And then Fat got all possessive and like stole you away, and I was left to my own devices. And I was like, I am going to find old Cairo. I'm going to find the marketplace. I'm going to see them carrying the baskets. I'm going to see if there's anyone in those baskets or if I can fit in any of them. Totally, that's going to be the thing. It's researching my lifelong dream, my lifelong kinship with this movie.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Life is hard, but finding a really great podcast makes the days go by so much easier. Hi, my name is Blue Telusma. I'm a writer, an emotional intelligence coach, and the host of Humanize with Blue Telusma, a podcast where we believe that when you humanize everyone in the room, a great conversation is almost guaranteed. Join us every week here on Electricast as me and my guest co-hosts unpack big topics and interview even bigger personalities with a sense of humor and a dash of mischief. If you're looking for a new best friend in your head, we've got you covered. Electricast.
And I walked around. I was like in the middle of Cairo, and I was going up to people in English and saying, where's old Cairo? Where's old? Because someone said, I think that's the old part of the city. Where's old Cairo? And they say, I do not know. Would you like to buy a chicken? And I'm like, no, I just want to go to old Cairo. And I'm walking around by myself in expensive shoes. And I get to old Cairo. I don't know if it was near the Citadel or whatever, but I'll tell you where it wasn't. It wasn't where they filmed this movie, Cairo, City of the Living. Because it was George Lucas, and George Lucas knew all about it from Star Wars, old Cairo, or Cairo as it was in this movie, is Tunisia. Broke my heart.
I was going to say Morocco. Oh.
Looks nothing like the Cairo in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
It is definitely specifically Cairo in Raiders of the Lost Ark, but it's kind of more of a pan-Arab representation of that part of the world.
Yeah. Before CG, they went around to Tunisia and these towns, and they said, hey, we'll give you money. Can you take down your antenna off the roof? Because that's not period appropriate.
Yeah, that makes sense. But also, Peru wasn't Peru.
No, of course not. But still, there wasn't a specific location. They were in the jungle, generally speaking. And we didn't exactly make it to the jungle unless you count Machu Picchu.
Right. Once jungle, now cleared out to uncover the ruins. I think that they filmed the quote Peruvian stuff in Hawaii.
Yes, correct. But still, so it looked good. And they had that weird, like, Toucan Sam doing that strange Star Wars style bird sound.
You mean for like the exotic bird?
Yeah, sound design is off the chain for Spielberg Lucas movies, at least for this time. And that bird is in my head forever.
All right, so how else does Raiders of the Lost Ark break your heart?
Do you remember performing these scenes in the bedrooms at Hawthorne, where I would be Indiana Jones and weirdly you would be Marion?
Oh, it's so weird.
Well, whatever. And I was like...
I'd be like, Indy!
I'd be like looking for the headpiece, and I'd be like, where's Abner? And I had no concept. They're both totally grown up, but she was like, I was a child. I was in love. It was wrong and you knew it. What does she mean? Indiana Jones in Raiders of the Lost Ark is about 35 years old, and Marion is pegged at being about 25. So at the time, 10 years ago when they hooked up, she was 15 years old.
15 and 25.
I don't even know. I don't know if you can justify it by the fact that it was like the 30s, but still, that's creepy.
Super creep. And Abner disowned, or he fell out of touch with Indy because of that? Because Indy was like Abner's protege, or like star student, right?
They had a disagreement.
But they had
a falling out.
Presumably over Marion.
I'm guessing so. And then in the screenplay, it turns out Abner died on some adventure or whatever. Anyway, and so fine. I mean, they don't explicitly state the math or her age, other than it was 10 years ago, but this is, I guess an estimation. But then Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Alison Doody, who plays Ilsa. She was 24 years Harrison Ford's junior, and probably 22 years old when that movie filmed.
Oof.
At
least she's legal.
Yeah, but the last official Indiana Jones movie in the original trilogy is Last Crusade, and unfortunately I'm older than Harrison Ford was in that movie.
Do you not consider Crystal Skull as being part of the franchise?
I'm not going to speak to that specifically. Obviously, he's older than me in this one. And in Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, the dude is going to be over 80.
How are you feeling about the Dial of Destiny?
It looks awfully slick and CGI. And Raiders was obviously almost entirely practical until we opened the ARK. But it looks very modern and kind of Disney-fied. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I have to see every Indiana Jones. Harrison Ford says it'll be the last one. I don't think he has a choice in that matter. I think it's pretty apparent. But I have to see all the Terminators. I have to see all the Jurassic Parks. As much as all these get dragged down to comic book level over time, I have to see them. It's a thing. I'm a complete nothing if not a completionist.
And what did you think about the Crystal Skull?
I understood. Look, the elements are undeniable. He's an archaeologist and a historian, but he understands that the supernatural elements exist in this world. There's a whole subplot where in the Bible he reads that if you gaze upon the ark, if you touch the ark, you die. If you gaze upon the ark while opening it, you die. That's how he knows to say to Marion, keep your eyes shut when Belloc opens the ark. And opening it and gazing upon it kills them. He understands that. He sees the spirits that do in the Nazis. He sees the heart being ripped out in Temple of Doom. Big spoiler. He sees the Holy Grail Knight dude in the Last Crusade. So when the aliens show up in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, it wasn't that far a departure. And I'm going to put on record right now that I believe that the Dial of Destiny refers to a time machine. I have no basis for that.
That's like your favorite thing ever.
I'm saying that the supernatural elements, or the pseudoscience, I guess, elements are a thing. And I've come to accept that, albeit begrudgingly.
I think there's some basis for that. There was weird, young-looking Harrison Ford shots in the trailer.
Yeah, I mean, that could have just been flashbacked, but, because you have super young-looking Harrison Ford in River Phoenix, who plays him at the beginning of Last Crusade.
So you're excusing all of the weirdness of the Crystal Skull by saying it wasn't that far a departure from what is understood to be part of this franchise?
And also Spielberg said that he hearkened back to a different style of filmmaking that he had matured beyond. He wanted his Indiana Jones to look uniform, and thus he retconned Raiders of the Lost Ark to then be Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. The very saying of that phrase hurts my tongue. It doesn't feel good. But he said he had readopted a younger director's style, so they all look kind of the same. I don't know if that's really true, because it was kind of dumb and there were some really cheesy special effects. And then there's the Tarzan scene, which anyone who's seen that movie knows exactly what I'm talking about. But man, I think that if he had gone full Spielberg and used his maximum powers to make it a grown-up, adult, contemporary Indiana Jones movie, I think it would have done a lot better. But whatever, he tried a thing. It didn't work, which is why he's not returning for Dial of Destiny.
But James Mangold's your favorite guy ever.
Right. I think he's an excellent choice. That said, the trailer looks a little bit cartoony. It looks like a Jurassic Park movie with no dinosaurs. It looks like Uncharted.
We haven't talked about Raiders of the Lost Ark almost at all in this review, so why start now? What's your favorite of the original three?
Oh, hands down, Raiders of the Lost Ark. It will be with me forever. There's no reason all those skeletons in the Well of Souls should have went and started yelling at her. But they did. And then the volume gets turned down when Indy grabs her. It's just such an adventure.
It's just it's heightened first-person perspective of them all coming after her.
I get it. Why would there be a thunderstorm with no rain over the desert of Cairo when they're unearthing the Well of Souls?
Well, because it's just creating this cosmic event.
Do you know that the Well of Souls set was filmed on Elstree Studios, where they filmed the Overlook Hotel in The Shining? The Overlook,
does that make it creepier?
That set burned down, and then they used it for the Well of Souls.
Is it a near-perfect movie because it has action, adventure, romance, horror, thriller, period, spectacle, great characters, friendship, all of it?
I think so. It's got a likable hero. We know exactly who we're focused on. It was fun, most importantly. It was based on the Republic adventure serials that both Lucas and Spielberg grew up with. And it was like the fun part of their childhood brought to contemporary audiences, those contemporary audiences being, over 40 years ago now. There's elements of Star Wars in there. C-3PO and R2-D2 are on one of the pillars when when Indiana and Sala are lifting the Ark with the poles out of the Well of Souls or whatever.
Like as a hieroglyph or something?
Yeah. John Williams is composing it. It's just great all around. For a movie that Steven Spielberg it was an homage to the serials, but also he kind of considered it a B movie. And like Casablanca, it just became like a huge classic.
Yeah, maybe there's something to that, though. You don't take it too seriously, and you make sure that it's fun.
Maybe. What do you think about this theory on the internet that Raiders of the Lost Ark, the story and the components and everything that happened with the Ark itself are completely unaffected by Indiana Jones? He doesn't change anything. If he hadn't been present, they would have gone to get the headpiece of the Staff of Ra. They would have found the map room. They would have gotten the Ark.
Who's they?
The Germans, the Nazis, and Belloc. They would have gotten the headpiece, and then they wouldn't have had to rely on Tot's burn on his hand to make the thing with the digging in the wrong place. One kadam, take back one kadam to honor the Hebrew God whose Ark this is. And they would have gotten the Ark. They would have gone to the thing. They would have done the uncomfortable Jewish ritual, as Dietrich mentioned, and they would have died.
Because they would have died, it wouldn't have mattered.
Indiana Jones did nothing to alter the course of the story. And one could say, well, Belloc said, there's nothing that you possess which I cannot take away. So while he wasn't a particularly good archaeologist, he was probably tailing Indiana Jones to steal his stuff from him again and again. And so maybe Indy would have led him.
Well, they definitely tailed him to
Nepal. Yeah, absolutely.
They wouldn't have known to have gone to Nepal.
Yeah. So, there are some inconsistencies, but generally speaking, while he fought and punched and killed a bunch of people and stuff, he really didn't change much at all, except for the fact that one way or the other, the Nazis would have acquired the Ark. And supposedly, an army that carries the Ark before it is invincible.
Belloc's choice to open the Ark then and there really didn't have anything to do with Indiana Jones. It had to do with his own. He was like, we can't take it back untested or unproven. We need to know before we return it to
the Fuhrer. I'm just saying that while I love this movie, I find so many things to complain about.
Does Raiders of the Lost Ark B-moviness allow for all of these just very colorful, odd characters?
Sure. Nazis are colorful and fun.
Sala is obviously great and he's joyful. Although for some reason I was afraid the whole movie because I had this inkling that he betrays Indy, but he never does.
Nope.
He's so faithful. But Tot, very weird character. Why? How does that happen?
Yeah, he's like Anton Chigurh, No Country for Old Men level weird. And I guess he's Asian, and I'm not going to venture, I think he's Asian, but I'm not going to venture what his race or nationality is. But he could be part of the Axis powers, right? I don't know. But his name is Ronald Lacey, and he died at a pretty early age, at 55. But am I wrong? Is this another betrayal? Did I assume that he was vaguely Asian my entire life?
I think he's British.
What? That dude's not Asian? Tot is not Asian? Is it the way he speaks?
So.
Oh, God. This is like John Wayne playing Genghis Khan.
I don't understand. He was supposed to be a Nazi. Why would you think he was Asian?
Because maybe he was Japanese. The Japanese like the Nazis. Dude.
Wow.
He's definitely weird. And furthermore, he takes off his hat to scratch his head and he's bald. right? Or when he's fighting and he shoves his hand in the snow, he's bald. He's not really bald. His stubble is apparent that they made him shave his head for those bald head scenes.
Because that makes him creepier?
That's weird, right? Why? He had the weird, maybe it's because he had vaguely Asian, like, nunchaku when he hung up his coat. I was like, uh-oh, he's got a weapon of Asianness, and then he's not. It was even more foreign to me that he would have a coat hanger because we grew up in California. There was no reason to have a coat heavy enough to warrant a coat hanger, at least in my experience.
Well, not only does he have a hanger, but he doesn't have a place to hang it.
Right?
He hangs it on his manservant.
He has a dude that'll hold it for him. Look at that picture. That's not an Asian dude.
No, that's clearly
not.
That
dude looks like Dad with a hat on.
No, he doesn't. But Dad doesn't look Asian, so I don't think that's a great comparison.
We talked nothing about the movie itself.
Pretty much nothing at all because you've seen it, because you know Raiders of the Lost Ark, and you don't need us to. But now you understand why Raiders of the Lost Ark is one of the most seminal, one of the most formative and most influential movies in Wesley's life and in relation, my life. So we hope you enjoyed this discussion on Raiders of the Lost Ark, retconned Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, especially in preparation for the upcoming movie. What's it called?
Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Which you know we will be out and covering. Are we going to cover the other films in this franchise,
Not
Wes?
even kinda. Because
really?
as with anything, they get worse as they go on, is my personal... I have love for elements of the other films, and I'm glad that they continue. I'm glad that they exist. But this one is kind of perfect, and I don't want to step on that.
I wouldn't mind revisiting Temple of Doom.
Go for it. Temple of Doom's awesome. Welcome.
All right, well, we'll see if I can convince you. But in the meantime, again, we hope you enjoyed this discussion and 200 plus more discussions on orwhatevermovies.com or wherever you find podcasts, 818-835-0473 or whatevermovies@gmail.com. Why does Raiders of the Lost Ark break your heart? Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Introducing the Deep Leadership Podcast. Leadership is a people business. That's the philosophy of your podcast host, John Rennie. As a former submarine officer who spent 22 years leading businesses in corporate America before starting his own manufacturing business, he knows that leadership matters. Deep Leadership is real-world, actionable leadership advice from John and his expert guests. Become a leader worth following. Subscribe today.
Electricast.
Hey, what's happening out there, everybody? This is Lawrence Ross, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about my podcast, The Lawrence Ross Show.
Egomaniac.
It's a 2-hour weekly exploration into my mind. I also do sketches, celebrity impersonations.
You're out of order!
And I also do song parodies. Not too shabby for a blind guy.
Not only are you visually impaired, but you are geographically impaired.
New episodes are released every Friday. Check it out on your favorite podcasting platform or listen to it here on Society 13 on Electricast.
Electricast.